Dynasty and best ball drafts are red hot right now.
Let's talk about those rookies who have the best landing spots that will have the most impact for your fantasy teams this fall.
Let's get into it.
And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono.
And I'm your host, Chris.
And as we talked about, we're going to talk about fantasy football rookies coming out of here, especially with all the best ball and dynasty drafts going on. There are players that landed in a very beneficial, impactful team and position that is going to be the people you want to key on this coming draft.
Oh, for sure. And there's so many guys, too, that were big names getting drafted that landed in not so great spots. So are they really high value? Maybe so in the dynasty drafts, not so much in best ball and redraft leagues.
Exactly. And I think redraft, some of these players are going to have a redraft value, and we'll talk about them. But I think, Chris, you and I have very common opinions on some of these guys, but we also have very difference of how we rank them. And the opportunity is one thing, but are they going to be good?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many guys that I think landed in great spots this year. And we saw it when we watched the draft live, especially in the first round with a lot of offensive players going. There are guys that landed in some prime spots to make an impact right away this year. I mean, obviously the big wide receivers.
Yeah, we're not going to even go into them because
Marvin Harrison's going to make a difference.
Malik Neighbors is going to have opportunity. I mean, Malik Neighbors may get targeted more than any rookie receiver out there because it's the Giants are going to be playing from behind, they're going to be throwing, and
yeah,
I mean, who else are you going to trust?
Well, on the flip side of that, of the top 10 guys were Rome Odunze. Do I love his spot this year, especially in in a redraft league? No, I don't. Like even in a best ball league, I don't love him there. There's just too many mouths to feed. But there's so many other guys on this list, especially that went in the second and third round, that are going to make tremendous impacts year one with their teams.
Absolutely. And we're not going to talk about Marvin Harrison. We're not going to talk about Malik Neighbors. Those are guys they're going to be home runs. They're going to give you value in the fantasy drafts, especially we're going to get them. Rome Odunze, dynasty draft wise, I like it.
I like it dynasty-wise.
That's about it, though. Redraft.
Dynasty, I think he is a must-have in Dynasty because, again, Keenan Allen's only going to be there for a year, right? So he's going to be a key piece in that offense moving forward. But this year,
well, so I mean, redraft, it depends. I mean, you redraft, you get him as a bench player. Injury happens to Keenan Allen with his age. Injury happens to DJ Moore. They run 3 receiver wide, and he has value. I think it can, but if you expect him to be your flex or your wide receiver 2, you're going to not have a good start to your season here.
Yeah, I mean, he's in redraft. I'm not touching him prior to the 11th round. And he's going to go before that.
And he's going to go before that because people follow ADP sometimes.
Right. So
let's start off with my favorite player, hometown hero here, Lad McConkey. He falls into a wide receiver core that it's up for grabs for a wide receiver 1. I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1. He may end up in quote-unquote targets, but output we'd see because there are still Quentin Johnston, who was a first-round draft pick for them this previous year. And, yeah, he had a terrible rookie campaign, but the whole team was terrible. So yep. I take that with a grain of salt. I actually do kind of want to see what he's got to go in. And then you have Palmer, who, honestly, Palmer's done good enough for that team to give himself at least a wide receiver 2 role. So if Lad's coming in, I think he kind of is like a 1A, 1B with Palmer or Johnston.
Well, I think Palmer and Johnston are both outside receivers, and what Ladd is going to fit into that offense is he really is going to fit into the Cooper Kupp mold. Yes. He's a great route runner. He's going to command a lot of targets this year. In PPR formats, in best ball.
Oh, I love him in best ball.
And in Dynasty, this is a receiver. He's a must-have for me. If you have a chance to get Lad McConkey this year, go and get Lad McConkey.
Well, and the reason I like him so much in Dynasty is because Josh Palmer is on borrowed time with the Chargers right now. They needed bodies there. They needed a warm body with a heartbeat, and Palmer was there, and he was the best of what they had. So why not keep him?
I mean, I think Palmer's a good player, and I think he stepped up into roles last year.
Yeah, but do you see him long-term with the Chargers? I don't. I see him
as a piece to that offense. Maybe. But they're going to go and try to get another big-time wide receiver if Johnston can't step into that.
I think that's what the biggest thing is. Is Quentin Johnston a bust, or is he going to grow into what he was at his senior year at TCU?
Yeah, you would hope so, because I liked him coming out of last year. and I did think that he had the opportunities last year, and he squandered those opportunities tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Keenan Allen get hurt, you had Mike Williams get hurt, and he had the opportunity to play, and he just never could. But I think from Lad McConkey's perspective, he might see 120 targets this year. I don't think that's
There's no. It's not a stretch. It's not a stretch
to say that. I think realistically, his floor is probably 86 receptions. That's what I think his floor is.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, you look at what happened. Well, it was different for Jalen Waddle coming to Miami because there were receivers there already, but there wasn't a Tyreek Hill yet. And Jalen Waddle broke the rookie record for receptions. Like, there is a possibility for someone like Lad McConkey to sneakily do that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jalen Waddle was a 6th pick in the draft that year.
Yeah,
so he was a Neighbors Harrison type of pick for the draft.
Yeah, we're not going to go and we're not going to see Puka's numbers from last year from Lad McConkey, but we can see a lot of the high reception games, the high target games. He's going to have the opportunity, and being such an elite route runner, like I could see him utilizing him at the goal line or in the red zone.
Well, I think third down is like I even put it down as one of my notes. Is like third down go-to guy. I think he's going to be a favorite target for Herbert because he's going to be a relief. Like just like Eckler was the relief valve for so many years for Herbert to check down, to get him out the backfield. They don't have that anymore. What do they have? They have Lad McConkey now.
The biggest question for the Chargers is what kind of offense are they going to be? Are they going to be like what they were the last 3 years, 4 years, where they're going to be this high-powered throwing offense? Or when Harbaugh comes in, are they going to go to a ground and pound? Are they have the pieces to do it there, and they have 3 really good running backs. You know, if J.K. Dobbins stays healthy, I mean, he could be a steal this year. Mm-hmm. But they have Gus Edwards. They drafted Imani Vidal there, so they have pieces there at running back. So are they going to shift gears? I don't necessarily think so. Not when you have Herbert throwing the ball.
No, I think what they're going to do is open up the opportunities for Herbert to be successful throwing the ball. That's the difference.
I think they're going to be a much more well-balanced offense this year.
He's not going to throw the ball 700 times, but he can throw the ball 500 times easily. He could still end with over 4,000 yards, but his opportunities are going to be more beneficial and with a greater higher rate of success because of that. Plus, he's got the receivers now. I mean, he had receivers last year. He was very successful to Keenan Allen. Yeah. He was successful for that big game with Mike Williams till he got towards ACL.
Yeah.
But to end on Lad McConkey here is like, to me, he can play out wide and in the slot. That's what I like about him. He doesn't have to be the number one to be highly successful and put up number one numbers. Right. That's the best part about it.
Right.
It's like we talked about Cooper Kupp when he broke through the gates. Like he wasn't the number one receiver that year, but he put up number one numbers. And, you know, you talk about Adam Thielen and some of the numbers he was putting up. He was putting up better numbers as a number 2 behind Jefferson his rookie season than some of the number 1 options for other teams. And I think Lad McConkey has an opportunity to do that.
For sure.
And with the run-first offense, the play-action opportunities, his route-running specialty that he's going to be open. And one of the things that I heard most recently that they like about him is they talked about Bowers when being interviewed a little bit, and they liked his ability for yards after the catch. But they say what people don't talk about Lad about is his yards after the catch. What he did with the football after he caught the ball at Georgia is what made him special. And you didn't see it a lot senior year due to the injuries.
Right.
But I just think that's where he may end up coming through a little bit better than someone like Quentin Johnston, who needs separation for his yards after the catch, straight line speed. He's not making people miss for any reason.
Well, and that's the thing. What makes Lad so good and what made him a really good prospect is his top of the route movement. Mm-hmm. He creates the separation at the top of the route, which a lot of his routes he's shifty. Like he's shifty. He's going to slip the first tackle. And if he gets some space on a dig route or a China route, like he's going to have space and yards after the catch. You know, are we saying he's going to break off 50-yard, catch and runs? Maybe. But
he's got the 4.3 speed to still do that.
To be that third down receiver that you were talking about, to get the extra yard, to get the extra 2-3 yards, make the first tackle miss, get the first down and get out of bounds or go down. He's going to be targeted a lot because of being that relief valve for Herbert. He has the ability to do that because he's such an effective route runner.
Yeah. I love this guy. Like you said, I'm trying to get him in all my drafts.
Yeah.
Period. Let's talk about a guy who falls into arguably the best situation.
What I think is the best situation.
Yeah, I mean, just because of quarterback, defense, coaching, everything, because you could argue Harrison and Neighbors fell into the best because they're automatic number ones. However, look at the pieces around them. I mean, Cardinals, you can argue, Kyler Murray, if you believe in him still, and James Conner's there and stuff. But Keon Coleman lands into the best situation in Buffalo with a premier quarterback, a team that's ready to win now for sure. They're not in a rebuild. They just lost their number one wide receiver, and he fills that role in terms of his...
And number two.
Yeah, and number two. And he fills that... Well, you could argue Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakir were interchangeable.
Sure, but they
yes,
lost two of the top three receivers there.
But, I mean, he has the big chance there to be number one. The weapons around him that helps him take coverage off too, because you got Curtis Samuel and you still have Khalil Shakir, and you've got James Cook. So he doesn't have to be the hero ball that Stephon Diggs wanted to play. And it also will help that offense to spread the ball around a little bit more. With the legs of Josh Allen, that also creates opportunities if he learns to play on a team where you have that. And get me wrong, Jordan Travis had the legs. He scrambled, and Keon Coleman got open for his guy. So I think this is one of the ones that the big body basketball background, the ability to go 50-50 ball, and the way Josh Allen tries to fit things in small windows now has a guy that can catch balls in small windows and make plays over top of defensemen.
Well, I just watched highlight tape on Keon Coleman today.
I love watching highlight tape on him.
I'm really excited about him being in this position. I mean, I hate it as a Jets fan, but he's going to get the sauce treatment this year.
Yeah.
When they play the Jets, at least. But what excites me about him is the opportunity. They lose Stephon Diggs, they lose Gabe Davis. Now, I had thought when those moves happened, they were obviously going to go and draft a wide receiver. But who they got there with Keon Coleman, he is one of those guys that fits Josh Allen's mold so well, where it's, I'm going to throw the ball inaccurately, and you're going to go and catch it for me.
And I'm going to throw it hard.
And that's what Keon Coleman does. I mean, Keon Coleman is a go up there and get the ball receiver. And I don't want to hear about his 40 time. I think the 40 is such a garbage stat to look at. When you're talking about elite receivers, like, he was breaking open. I mean, he had a 3-touchdown game against LSU.
Well, I mean,
a 3-touchdown game against LSU.
Speaking of LSU and 40 times, let's talk about someone like Odell Beckham Jr. I think he was in the 4.4s for his 40. He was breakaway speed when he caught that ball because he was catching it in full stride.
Right.
And he was gone. He split the seams. Like, that was his move. It was a deep slant through the seam, gone. Jalen Waddle's faster than that.
Right.
But Keon Coleman moves fast. He catches the ball at top speeds. And that's the benefit that you get there.
And he's physical.
Yeah.
So, okay, you take away the speed, get a closing corner on him, and he's going to shove his long wingspan out at you and stiff arm you. Like, I watched the highlight tapes that he was doing that too. Like, he is a big physical receiver. He's lanky. He's long. He's going to be a red zone he's going to be a monster in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy that I think he can have 8+ touchdowns this year as a rookie.
He can.
Like, he's probably, like, if Marvin Harrison didn't get drafted to the Arizona Cardinals, I think Keon Coleman could be statistically the best rookie receiver this year.
Yeah.
From a fantasy perspective.
In terms of fantasy points, yes.
Now,
I agree.
I want him in best ball for sure.
Best ball.
I want him in every format.
Dude, I just did a best ball draft today, and I have Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, and Josh Allen.
Wow. Okay.
I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, you're really loaded up on Buffalo, huh?
Well, I mean, listen, it's all or nothing for these guys at this point,
And here's the thing too is, like, they are in this win now mentality, but they took a lot of hits this year from cap-wise perspective.
Especially defense.
Especially defensively.
So, again.
So they're going to have to keep up in games.
Exactly my point.
And you have to like the offensive, what they're going to try to do offensively. It's why I like James Cook so much, is because they're going to try to run the ball, slow the game down, and take the big shots.
I even like Curtis Samuel.
I like Curtis Samuel this year too.
If I can get a piece of this offense, I'm going to. And that's why I did it in best ball. Because of the way they've spread out ADP-wise, while Coleman's is so low right now,
right?
I was able to get him. Dalton Kincaid's is so high right now. I focused on him, and I was like, you know what? Now I got my two weapons. You can do that in best ball. In redraft leagues, you can do that in redraft because of the disparity in the ADP. That's going to change when we start seeing highlights come out of camp, highlights coming out of rookie camp. We're going to see his ADP stock rise. I guarantee you.
Oh, for sure. And this is the thing is, and this is, I put caution on a lot of like stuff that we talked about early, this early in the season before OTAs and you just don't know who's going to step up, who's not. But he's going to be in a clear situation where there's nobody else there, and he is so talented that there's no way he falls off. There's no way it's not Quentin Johnson from last year walking up behind Mike Williams and Keon Allen.
Well, that's what we said.
There's nobody there for him to walk up. He has to play.
He has to. Well, we said it last year with those top 4 receivers last year. We knew right away that we did not like the opportunity for Quentin.
Or
we
JSN.
didn't like the opportunity for JSN. We liked it for Zay
and we liked it for
Addison. And both of them proved to be assets at times, great wide receiver 2s throughout the entire season.
Right.
So, and we're saying it again here, this guy could be your wide receiver 2, putting up wide receiver 1 numbers because where you can get him.
I don't think it's a far stretch to say he could be a top 20 receiver easily.
Oh, I'd put money that he finishes top 20.
Yeah.
Just based on opportunity.
And where he's going ADP wise is so low right now that he's such a value to go and draft. Like he's going to be a mid-tier wide receiver that I'm going to go and look and grab.
And that's why I put listen, I know I'm a Giants front runner here, but Malik Neighbors, you look at what happened when Odell Beckham came in, and it was like just get the ball to Odell Beckham.
Right.
It's going to be a similar situation for Neighbors.
Maybe.
But I think it's not going to be that for Coleman.
I think Eli was a lot more competent than DJ.
Well, we don't know. Eli had better weapons around him at all times. The best weapon that Daniel Jones has had has been who?
Darren Waller.
Yeah, that worked out.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
It was Slayton. Slayton's been the top receiver under the reign, and he's a good receiver, but he's a wide receiver 3 on any other team.
Yeah,
he's a practice player. So, but anyway, I digress. Keon Coleman. If you have an opportunity to grab him, he's a guy I would jump up on.
Oh yeah, he's a guy
I would jump above
around early,
correct,
and going to go grab him.
And you're not going to be upset about it.
No.
Well, let's talk about a guy too that we have a little bit difficulty of where to spot him. The opportunity is there, and it's up to him to win the job because there are 2 other receivers there that he's technically behind. But Adonai Mitchell should have been a first rounder. Like he was, I think his personality and what he did off the field was more or less the concerns for some teams, which is why his ADP dropped based on the reports that are coming out. But he brings an athleticism to the receiving core, a bigger body similar to Pittman that is not by Alec Pierce or Josh Downs. And he has the opportunity to be a wide receiver 2 flex play for your fantasy team if he beats those 2 guys out as the wide receiver 2. And it may not be beginning of the game or beginning of the season. It'll be one of those opportunities by mid-season. He is the guy. I mean, we saw it happen in Green Bay with what's his face? I'm drawing a blank now. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson were the top guys, and then
Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed is, cream rise to the top. Like he was definitely the guy that by midseason was here, and I could see Adonai Mitchell doing that.
When Adonai Mitchell got drafted, I thought this was a great landing spot for him. And we talked about it in the pre-draft and like the wide receiver rankings, where I thought this was a really good landing spot for him. You give yourself another big body physical receiver on the opposite side of Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's going to be the guy there.
Yeah.
And what this allows them to do is move Josh Downs into the slot. The only issue here that I see like really tanking his ceiling is the fact that they're going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to run the ball, and they're going to want to play defense. So how much volume is there for a number 2 receiver? This isn't Peyton Manning running this offense. Now, Anthony Richardson being healthy, we haven't really seen this offense run under him for a full season, obviously. And we could see this offense start to take off.
But we did see that this offense put up over 30 points against a decent Cleveland Browns defense.
For sure.
So, and that was without Anthony Richardson. Now, don't forget, Josh Downs had some fantastic blow-up games,
right,
and he had touchdown capital on this team. I think that's where Adonai Mitchell comes in. I think it hurts Downs. It hurts Alec Pierce more than it's like a great option for.
I think Adonai Mitchell is going to beat out Pierce for sure. And I think they're going to be able to use Downs. He's going to be interchangeable with Downs on 3 receiver sets. You're probably going to see a lot of Pittman at Adonai Mitchell and Downs in the game.
I agree.
So Pierce, I think, is going to be the odd man out. Maybe not in the first couple of games of the season, but he has a lot more physical presence than Pierce does.
And he's got the speed.
And he's got the speed. And so you don't go and take a guy like this in the second round unless you're really looking to have him come in and make an impact.
Yeah.
So I love this pick. I love where he ended up landing. I think Indianapolis has a very dangerous offense, and look at the games that they're going to have to keep up with. Like, we like the Jaguars' offense.
Houston.
We like Houston's offense. And look what Tennessee just did.
Yeah, we said it last year about Michael Pittman. I loved Michael Pittman going into the year. You know, I was skeptical because of Richardson, but I'm no longer skeptical because of Richardson. You know, if he throws 62% completion percentage, you know, so what? He's got a solid running game around him, and he has the ability to rush the ball. He's going to create.
But honestly, it's the same kind of argument as Keon Mitchell, right? Like, you have, even if his completion percentage, Keon Coleman, sorry, even if his completion percentage is down from his quarterback, now you have two big body receivers that are physical that can go up and get the ball.
Well, and that's what they did for Michael Pittman. All that, like at the end of the year, they was just like throw it up to Pittman,
right? And now you have a guy on the other side that can get open, that has speed, and does that too,
and doesn't garner top coverage,
right? And so he's landing in a great spot. I love him in best ball leagues because I think he has a lot of.
I like him in dynasty too because I think he's going to eventually be the number 2 guy, solid, you know, next year.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I like him less in dynasty because he is not going to overtake Michael Pittman. He just had a contract extension, so we know he's going to be there.
Yes, but you never know. The way this league is running, people getting traded, people have to clear cap and don't want to spend money on big receivers. They got another big receiver,
right? But
you never know.
But they're not in a situation. Indy's not in a situation where they're looking to unload cap. They don't have a ton of expensive veterans on
not
the
right
team.
now.
Not right now. But like, if they're going to free up space by letting, you know, Jonathan Taylor go.
True.
Not Michael Pittman. I mean, I think they made it clear Michael Pittman is going to be there for the next 4 years.
Yeah, and so is A.D. Mitchell on his rookie contract.
And so is A.D. Mitchell on the rookie contract.
Yeah.
So we're going to see him never really coming into that number 1. So I like him less in Dynasty. I still like him in Dynasty. But in terms of best ball, I think he could have some real monster games this year.
Exactly. Kind of like how Josh Downs did last year, but I think better because Josh Downs did a lot with a little on big chunk plays. A.D. Mitchell is going to garner good amount of targets and has the body to get the easy red zone touchdowns. Exactly. He doesn't have to break an 80-yard bomb.
Exactly.
Like, he doesn't have to go for 50-yard touchdowns. He's going to get those 10-yarders. Those here. He could have a couple games where he's got multi-touchdown games.
Exactly. So that's why I like him there.
Let's talk about Xavier Legette because this is a guy that was my favorite receiver going into this draft. I knew he was going to go somewhere that was going to be impactful for him because he is another big body guy. He, to me, has the opportunity to be the number 1 in Carolina. Deontay Johnson is not a number 1 receiver. We know that. He did put up numbers as a number 1 wide receiver in Pittsburgh because, well, they only had him and Pickens. So to me, he comes in. Deontay's ability to get open helps draw coverage, and it could help Xavier Legette get open. But the biggest thing that I like that Legette brings to this Carolina team, and I don't know if you watched a ton of the Carolina games. I didn't last year, but when I did, I noticed Bryce Young had vision going left and to the right. He struggled over the middle. Why? He's a shorter quarterback, and he didn't have big receivers. He now has a big receiver. He has a guy that you can get across the middle that has good yak afterwards as well. So, again, it's that situation. You run that quick, big body slant, hit him up high. He goes for 15 on a 6-yard pass.
So, I mean, I don't like him here. Like, I'm probably staying away from Carolina is one of my avoid teams this year. I have to see it from Bryce Young before I believe in anyone else there. And you could say you love Deontay Johnson there. You could say you love Legette there. I know a lot of people are high on Jonathan Brooks, who we'll talk about later, but I'm not high on him either. I think there's too many question marks on this team, and it all revolves around year 2 Bryce Young. What can he do? Because he was under pressure a ton last year.
So much.
And he looked lost at times. And you saw this off. I said it when this game happened, that Andy Dalton ran this offense better than Bryce Young did. And they had the number 1 overall pick, and they should have let him sit behind Andy Dalton, let him learn, because Andy Dalton ran this offense effectively. And then Bryce Young came back healthy after a game and a half, and they put him back in there to get just absolutely demolished and have nine or 12 points put up every game.
Yeah, and the running game is what really saved them in terms of a couple times.
So you gave Bryce Young experience by letting him hand the ball off.
Yeah, right.
It's essentially what they did.
I have faith in it because it is a throw the ball up type of guy, and that team last year had the worst yards per separation.
Yeah, and they get Deontay Johnson, who is one of the best at creating separation.
They get Legette, who doesn't need separation, but he still gets it because he's fast enough.
Yes,
but you're not running out with old man Thielen. Like, he's going to be out there, but you don't have to trust.
But Thielen was their best receiver last year.
He was their only good receiver.
But they had other younger guys that obviously Mingo's probably going to go away now with Legette.
And Terrace Marshall was a failed experiment for some time now.
Yeah, they haven't had good quarterback play there.
They haven't had a good tight end there for a while.
Yeah, this is an offense that I'm trending. I like Legette, maybe in a dynasty if value's there. I don't love him in best ball. I don't think this offense is effective enough. I don't think that they're going to give him the ball enough. Like, maybe if he's able to spring off like crazy plays on handoffs, because that's where I think he's going to be used, is like as a gadget player.
Oh, I don't think so.
I think he's going to be used in like a Debo role.
I don't think so. I mean, he's got the body to do it, but to me, I think he's going to be your traditional X-style receiver. He's going to garner a lot of targets. Deontay Johnson's going to get open. Deontay Johnson's going to create opportunities, and in the red zone, this guy's going to be a touchdown machine.
How many times they're going to be in the red zone? Now, it's I don't want to debate this player back and forth because I don't like him. It's a team I want to avoid. It's a team I don't want to touch any of their players. Like, if their value dropped down so much to me that they're available, like if Legette's available in the 11th or 12th round, would I take a flyer on him? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I'd take him on best ball with a flyer like that too.
I don't think this offense is potent enough. So let me ask you, because I want to. He's not on your list, but I want to switch up and I want to talk about this player because he's one of my favorite players this year in best ball. And in Dynasty is Malachi Corley.
Yeah.
So who do you like more, Malachi Corley or Xavier Legette? In their current situations.
To me, it could be a push. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think Corley's going to be good, but he's still going to be sitting behind two other type of receivers.
Yep.
Legette doesn't have Aaron Rodgers thrown to him, doesn't have the running game to trust and the defense. But I think Legette's going to get more opportunities.
But I think that Legette is in a similar situation. I think he's right now behind both Thielen and behind Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, that's not going to be that long.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, it's again, this is early on.
It's also Carolina pushing Bryce Young in there.
I know.
I'm just saying. I think you're going to be. I think you're going to be mistaken, not sorely mistaken, but I think you're going to be mistaken on your opinion because they're going to try and get this young guy the ball.
Am I Corley mistaken?
No, I like Corley. I do like Corley a lot.
I think Corley is in a much better situation where the offense is going to be much better. He's going to have more opportunity. He's a very similar style receiver.
But I don't think it's going to be a lot of opportunity.
I think he's going to be in 3 wide receiver sets. I think he's going to be used in the same way Jaden Reed was used with Green Bay last year.
Yeah, I could see that.
But look what Jaden Reed did last year.
Yeah.
And there were other guys. He was wide receiver 4. And there were other guys there. And he still was fantasy relevant, especially down the stretch. I mean, how many weeks last week or last year down the stretch in fantasy playoffs were we saying, start Jaden Reed? Start Jaden Reed. Every week he was putting up 100-yard touchdowns.
But again, that we were talking about doing that when you had an injured Aaron Jones. Dylan was your main running back. Like, you actually have a decent running game here, and you have Aaron Rodgers, who you want to have him do things with the ball too.
Right.
Where you had a young Jordan Love in his first year starting. I think the situation's different. But I think the skill set is there for Corley. I agree.
Yeah.
I just think you have now a big body receiver in Mike Williams. You have Garrett Wilson, a fantastic receiver. You don't have that pure good receiving tight end, but Conklin is a good tight end to throw to. You need that wide receiver 3, and he is going to be that guy. And he gives you the opportunity to do some fun things with the football and bubble screens and stuff. So opportunities are going to be there.
Well, I just like I like the opportunities and more than I like what I think Legette's going to get in Carolina, just because I think that offense is so poor. I don't like that offense. Like I don't. They made additions and they made pieces to help that offense out. But I mean, if you're looking at the list of top starters in the league, Bryce Young is bottom 5, if not bottom 3.
I mean, listen, I just think it was. I don't agree fully with that, but it wouldn't surprise me if he ends that way in the season.
And if Legette was the only guy there, if they didn't bring in Deontay Johnson, if Thielen wasn't there and Thielen retired,
no, if it was just Legette there, I would not like Legette as much.
I mean, it'd be the same argument as Neighbors, right? I mean, I still wouldn't like it, but he's gonna get all the attention on him. I think Legette has an opportunity to not have all the attention, and I think he's a really good receiver, and he's physical, and he can win the 50-50. But Bryce Young doesn't have the arm strength to fit it into tight windows, and these are NFL corners that they're going to be playing against. This isn't
agreed.
So,
but I mean,
so Legette's got to win the routes, and Legette's got to come back to the ball, and they got to get him the ball in the middle of the field.
Just go watch his film with Spencer Rattler.
But I mean, I could make an argument Spencer Rattler's a better quarterback than Bryce Young.
Okay, I can make an argument the fact that Bryce Young in his college career with Alabama, we're talking about 1 year in the NFL in a bad year. Okay, in a bad year for Carolina, in a year that we both agree he shouldn't have started.
Right.
He had a career at Alabama where he was passing the ball over the middle, big time receivers, playing against the top cornerbacks that we're seeing and safeties that we're seeing in the NFL right now as young guys. So he can do it. He's got the pedigree. Now, is he going to rise above and take the haters out and decide like, yeah, I'm going to be a good quarterback? If he does, this kid Legette is going to have a good rookie season.
There's so many questions with Legette that I have in that offense. Not with Legette, but with that offense that it's going to be hard for me to this is not a guy I'm overdrafting.
No, but this guy you're not drafting. He's not drafting him as your wide receiver 2. You're not drafting him as your wide receiver 1. You're drafting him as
best ball. I would like to have a piece of this.
I want him in best ball,
but I don't think
dynasty.
I don't know how much I want him in dynasty.
Why? What if they say Bryce Young experiment's done and they draft a top tier quarterback later on? And now he's the number 1 guy there.
Maybe.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's the beauty of dynasty.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Let's keep moving on. We'll talk about another Xavier.
Yeah.
And this situation keeps getting better.
It sure does.
Xavier Worthy came in as a wide receiver 3 behind Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown. It's now looking like he has a streamlined opportunity to wide receiver 2, possibly 1, depending upon how this offense unveils him. Now, you have Rashee Rice dealing with legal problems, and we're not going to go over those here because you can read all about it here, and it's a mess. I mean, it's a mess.
And it just keeps getting on.
It keeps getting worse. Hollywood Brown, we've seen up and downs in his career, both in Baltimore and in Arizona. He's a good receiver. He gets open. He drops the ball. He doesn't always garner the touchdowns. This guy here, we likened him to Deshaun Jackson when we talked about him in pre-draft and during the draft. It's exactly what Andy Reid likened him to as well. And if you like a guy who has the opportunity to pull off a touchdown with 1 catch of the ball often, he's a guy for you. Like, this is a guy that I'm taking after I solidify my wide receiver 1 and 2. Because until I see that he's going to do more and have he has the opportunity to have a Tyreek Hill role with Kansas City the way Tyreek Hill did. But until I know that's what it's going to be and not more of a Deshaun Jackson role where you get a couple home runs in a game and they try and get him some screens here and there, he could end with 50 yards and no touchdowns or 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's what I'm just interested in seeing.
From a best ball perspective, I love him here.
Best ball, yes. Best ball, dynasty, I like him too because Hollywood's on a 1-year deal.
I like him from a redraft standpoint and again, he would have to be my wide receiver 3.
That's what I'm saying.
It also depends on where I have other guys, if other guys start slipping, because I think he can be that wide receiver 2 flex role. Like,
especially if you go running back heavy.
If you go running back heavy, I think this is a guy you could target because he's going to have those big blow up games. With Rashee Rice, probably looking at a substantial suspension.
Even 4 games, like you can lose a spot quickly.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy is going to be used in such a role where like they love the downfield threat. They love being able to break the big play open. And outside the speed, if you look at his college career, like it wasn't just about speed with him.
No, it wasn't.
And that's what I think separates him from the John Rosses and the other guys that like broke the 40-time record. Is he was an above average route runner on top of the speed. So he's going to get open. And he went to an offense that is just it's a perfect fit of needing a guy to step up to be the wide receiver there. And they get Marquise Brown. I think Marquise Brown is a really good value pick this year. But Xavier Worthy is probably going to be the guy that has the monster games.
But here's my thing. When I'm talking about redraft, and this is what I'm going to talk about, Worthy and Hollywood Brown. I think Hollywood Brown's value slipped from it where it was last year. I mean, people may want him more because he's at Mahomes, but then they see Worthy and Rice. It may slip, and I think you're going to get good value out of him. I think Worthy's going to be drafted above his ADP because of his skill set, because he's on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're going to have to fight with yourself.
And here's the thing: is like we've seen the last 3 years, Kels's role diminish. And is Kels still a top 3 tight end in the league? Yeah, for sure. But if you go and look at his snap counts year to year, they're dropping.
Yeah, he's getting older in a tough position.
Yeah, and so the targets have to go somewhere. And this offense
Kadarius Toney.
They ain't going to Tony. But the experiment I think with Sky Moore is over. I think he is going to be a non-factor anymore. MVS is gone. Like there's
Mecole Hardman's gone.
They need people to step up at the wide receiver position, so they get a guy like Worthy who is going to step up.
Yeah, I agree.
So they put a lot of value on him. They traded up to go and get him, and getting a wide receiver in the first round for the defending Super Bowl champions with Patrick Mahomes, like, yes, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me some of that.
Again, we talk about the same thing with these skill players in the first round for the Chiefs. They did that with CEH. And has that panned out? You never know with how they use players on this offense because they don't care who you are, except you're Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes. They don't care who you are. You need to produce or your snaps are going down. I mean, look at MVS. I thought that guy had the greatest path to being the top receiver on that team.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't catch the ball.
Yeah. I mean, they used a lot of different guys there. There's then this is the tricky thing about since Tyreek Hill's left, about owning a receiver there is like, who's it going to be? And Rashee Rice at the end of last year really stepped up into that role, but they're clearly looking for it. And they clearly had issues with wide receivers last year. It's why they struggled during the regular season. Obviously they go on and win the Super Bowl, so who the hell cares? But they struggled. They should have been winning a lot more games in the regular season if they had better receiver play.
Yeah.
And so they go and get Marquise Brown and they go and get Xavier Worthy. And I think they really start to fill out this wide receiver room. This is a very talented team, and you have a lot of speed everywhere, and speed kills.
Yeah.
When you have Patrick Mahomes, speed kills.
Yeah, it's obvious. I mean, you got to compete against some of the faster teams out there. I mean, we talk about the greatest show on turf that won the Super Bowl. Should have won 2 Super Bowls in a row.
Right.
What did they have? They had speed.
They a lot of speed.
A lot of speed at the running back. It reminds me of the Dolphins.
Well, the thing too is like that. Not only is the speed going to kill you, but Mahomes is such an untraditional quarterback, and he makes a lot of like backyard football plays that you might have Xavier Worthy with no one around him for 10 yards in the middle of the field.
Yeah, good
and
luck.
He's going to Tyreek Hill that because he has the speed to break off to make a 10-yard play into a 70-yard touchdown.
Well, the thing that I liked about him and that I like him to Deshaun Jackson, we'll move on to this next receiver. I'll let you talk about him here because he's one of your favorite guys coming up. But the note on Worthy, too, with Deshaun Jackson, these guys they had top speed, but the reason they had top speed, and it's the reason why Tyreek Hill is so fast, too, is their acceleration out of breaks, out of catches. They're able to turn on a 90 and go 0 to 60. Right. So again, you get in a situation where he's going east to west, running with Pat Mahomes. He catches that ball and he turns it up north. I mean, he's going to have people chasing his coattails pretty fast. And so I like the opportunity. Again, I want him as my wide receiver 3. You get him as your wide receiver 3 in redraft, you're going to be happy because he's eventually has an opportunity to take over your wide receiver 2 role. It's the same thing, that you saw in Jalen Waddle years prior. So
and he's going to be successful there. Go and draft him in best ball leagues. Do yourselves a favor.
Absolutely.
The next guy we'll talk about is Jalen Polk with the New England Patriots. This is a guy I absolutely love where he landed.
We can talk about Baker here too as well because they're kind of hand in hand.
And that's really where I was going with it. It's who's going to step up there, and more importantly, who's going to be the quarterback. Because if Jacoby Brissett's the quarterback there, I really like both of these guys. If Drake May is the quarterback there, I think this offense is going to struggle. I think that they're going to have opportunity. Jalen Polk is a guy, but both these guys, Baker and Polk, so many people are staying away from the Patriots offense this year.
I think it's a mistake.
I think it's a mistake because you're going to get these guys at like a tremendous value.
Correct.
And especially in dynasty leagues.
And why are we sticking away from Ramondre Stevenson?
Right. I mean, there's
Antonio Gibson is like a prototypical perfect Bill Belichick type of running back.
Right.
Now he's not there.
He's
but
the Ty
still,
Montgomery that they don't have anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
He was a better version.
Rex Burkhead.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's the same guy.
Ramondre's going to be the guy there. I don't know why people are staying away from the Patriots offense. If Drake May is the starting quarterback, this offense is going to struggle.
No, if Drake May is a quarterback, I love Ramondre even more.
Right. But from a dynasty perspective, both these receivers, Baker and Polk,
even best ball. One of them is like if you have an opportunity in best ball to grab both of them, like if you're in the 11th or 12th pick and it gets down to those rounds where you could get them, take them back to back because it's best. One of them's going to hit.
Right.
One of them's going to hit.
And they're both going to be available late because I think that there's just so many people that I've seen so far is staying away from the Patriots offense as a whole.
Yeah.
Which I just think is a mistake because I do think that Brissett is going to start the season. I think that they'd be smart to do that. You have Gerard Mayo coming in. He's a younger coach. He understands developing quarterbacks. It's going to take some time. They're throwing a guy into the Wolves, especially when you're talking about having Miami's defense.
Yeah, the AFC
Jets
East too.
defense.
Yeah.
Like the defenses there are going to come after you.
But again, there's
a
chance he can beat Brissett out in camp. I mean, that's a different story.
Sure.
But just playing him to play him because you drafted him 3 overall is a mistake to make.
Yeah, it is. But these two receivers are going to be really good for the Patriots for a long time. They're not big, flashy guys. They are traditional, get the job done.
Well, I argue Baker could be flashy because he takes the top off the defense.
He does, and he's a physical 50-50 guy.
But Polk gets it done.
Polk is just like if you want just a standard run-of-the-mill wide receiver that's going to be effective every time you throw him in there. This is Polk.
Well, the reason why I like
Polk is a third down receiver.
Yeah,
he's tall. He has speed behind him, and he like. If you look at the stats from last year, there's 2 other receivers there, and he still was shining game in and game out.
Yeah, well, 3 Washington receivers got drafted this year. The other one to Tampa Bay. But the reason I like Polk over Baker is because he did play behind a wide receiver 1.
Right.
And he played that wide receiver 2 role so well. It was almost like speaking of Tampa Bay, like Godwin with Mike Evans.
Right.
They both can have value. So if he gets himself into the wide receiver 2 position here.
Well, is Kendrick Bourne the wide receiver 1?
Well, no, didn't they also got KJ Osborne there now?
KJ Osborne.
So there's a plethora. They still have Juju.
They have a plethora of wide receiver too.
Yeah, they still have Pop. They still got plenty of people there.
Yeah.
So, but I think he has an opportunity to rise up and be the wide receiver 2 that puts up probably some of the better numbers for New England this year.
Yeah, like in redraft, I'm probably staying away from these guys. I
would take a chance on them because they're going to drop down because people aren't going to trust that offense because people aren't going to know. If they're not listening to this podcast or not listening to anything else, they're going to see a Patriots wide receiver that is going to be maybe depends on which. If you're following chalk ADP, maybe they put Polk ahead of like KJ Osborne or ahead of Kendrick Bourne, but Kendrick Bourne's going to be ahead of him, and they're going to be like, I really don't like anybody else there.
Right.
So you're going to he's going to fall, and he's going to fall to around like round 12, and he's going to be sitting there for you, and he's going to be your 5th wide receiver.
Right. If he's there 12th, 13th round, yeah, I'm going to take a shot on one of these guys. But again, if I'm saying that I'm accepting to take him there, do I love him? No.
But do you love him as a second half of the season receiver that could win your league for you as a flex play?
Possibly, and we've seen this from Patriots quarterbacks or Patriots wide receivers quite a bit, where there's going to be one that just eventually stands out. And I think Polk is going to be that guy.
But we're in a new era of Patriots, though, too.
We are. And that's the thing to consider, too.
You can't have recency bias. And that's what I'm trying to talk about here for both Carolina with the new regime and also for the Patriots here.
Yeah, and that's the scary part about drafting guys from this team, or let me say, overdrafting guys from these regimes.
Yeah.
Will I take them at value? Yeah, I'll take them at value. But Polk, Baker, their value is going to be 12th, 13th round, if that. Like there's going to be somewhere.
I'm not taking more than one Patriot. Like if you're going to give me a Patriot, I want Ramondre.
Right.
And I would take a late flyer on Antonio Gibson. Those are the ones.
Maybe Hunter Henry.
Yeah. It's solid, but don't forget they did also bring in
Jaheim
Bell, who you love too. But I just think if you're talking about receivers here, we still don't know who it's going to be. If I'm taking a flyer on one of them, it's going to be Polk. If I'm in best ball or dynasty, I'm definitely going to take him. And in best ball, I'm taking both. Because again, I think one of them has an opportunity. And in best ball, you're just looking for somebody to have a game-breaking game that can overtake, 2 mediocre finishes from your top receivers.
Yeah.
And that's what these guys can do for you.
Yeah, I think that there's maybe something sneaky about like the end of the dynasty in Bill Belichick, where he just like purposely walks away, gives him like a bunch of these guys. Who are like Polk reminds me of kind of the receivers that they kind of bring in and know how to get value out of. Like he reminds me of that kind of guy where like he's not big and flashy, he gets the job done.
Yeah,
like classic Patriot way of things, and maybe he was onto something. Maybe this youth of what the Patriots are for the next couple of years. Jaheim Bell, really explosive playmaker at tight end. Polk, Baker. You start setting things up for the future depending on how they kind of play their cards this year.
You get a big arm with May.
Yeah.
Down the road, if he's able to solidify himself into a solid quarterback.
Yeah.
Make good plays. He's got the receivers because we know Juju's done.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Juju took the Claypool role this year. They just fade him out of a starting position.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
not a lot of money invested into that.
And Kendrick Bourne's coming off an injury, I'm pretty sure. So I think there's a chance he starts on the PUP list, which gives these two guys an opportunity to really showcase themselves.
Right. So I do like both these later on in drafts. I don't know how much again, do you love this offense as a whole to take them in best ball to think, because you're thinking best ball, it's like big boom big boomer bust guys. Or that classic, like, steady Eddie kind of guy. I don't see them being in kind of
Well, it depends on how you make up your team.
Yeah. But I don't see them being in either one of those categories.
I could see them being a big boom bust guy.
Maybe, but I don't think on...
Especially Baker. I think Baker right now.
I mean, Baker could be. I think Polk is more of the steady Eddie kind of guy, but I just don't see it this year. Yeah. But I like him. Dynasty-wise, I do like him there. I like Polk. I think he's in a good situation. I think next year when Drake May ends up being the full-time starter, and I really hope I don't hope the Patriots do this. I hope the Patriots are terrible for the next 20 years. But if the Patriots are smart, they let Drake May learn to play quarterback in the NFL, and next year you have enough offensive pieces around him to make that team successful.
Yeah. Well, I want you to talk about Roman Wilson, because this is another guy that you really liked going into this draft. You talked highly of him. I like him too, but I don't love Roman Wilson. His opportunities, though, is fantastic.
So I really like Roman Wilson as a substitute for Deontay Johnson.
Because he's the exact
he
thing.
is. He gets open. He creates separation and gets open. And so do I love the situation? I love it more now than when Kenny Pickett was there. So we saw Deontay Johnson at times last year and times the year before, like, be really effective with Kenny Pickett as a quarterback, or without Kenny Pickett as a quarterback.
I think Deontay Johnson was just open.
Right, and I think Roman Wilson...
all they had to do was get him the ball.
Right, so I think Roman Wilson's the same kind of pedigree on that. And you still have Pickens on the other side, who is this big body, physical, dynamic,
athletic
freak.
Yeah.
But doesn't create a lot of separation. So you have your down the field threat, and then you have your every down wide receiver. The offense this year is going to be predicated around running the football.
I agree.
And playing good defense. But they're in a division with a healthy Cincinnati Bengals,
a healthy Baltimore
Ravens,
and
the Cleveland
really
Browns.
Good Cleveland Browns team. I wouldn't call healthy, but good Cleveland Browns team.
Yeah, they're well massaged. But
well, listen, you got two guys coming off surgeries.
Yeah.
Your main running back and your quarterback.
Yeah, so you have a really tough division here, and they're going to have to keep up. So they're going to be able to run the football. They're going to have to play good defense, and they're going to have to score points. I like this offense a heck of a lot more with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields running the helm.
Absolutely.
I don't care who it is.
I like Russell more than I like Fields because Russell's a more accurate passer, and this guy's going to be open. Fields held on to the ball a little bit too long in the previous seasons he's here, and you have a small window in the NFL when that guy's open. And I think Russell, if he could learn from Russell a little bit and he can understand that and create that rapport, I think it's going to help.
So, going back to Roman Wilson, like if you look at Russ's time in Seattle, he had DK, Tyler Lockett.
Oh, he had more than DK.
Well, he had way more than that over his career there. But
look at the Super Bowl teams. But
towards the end, he had those two types of playmakers. You had this big physical body receiver, and you had a small guy that got open.
Yeah.
And so think about Tyler Lockett's numbers. And that's something I would love if Roman Wilson was able to replicate even 80% of that.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about an 8-touchdown, 1,000-yard guy.
Well, he has Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson ahead of him. That's it. And so you look at that and you're like, he's got a easy open the door rookie camp. I'm the number 2 guy here.
Yeah,
easy.
He's going to be the number 2 there. He's going to end up being the number 2 there. There's not that wide receiver room prior to the draft was very weak.
But the thing that scares me about it is Deontay Johnson. He was at times a wide receiver 2 flex play last year. Now, obviously, the quarterback play was abysmal, but to me, this offense ran through the running game last year. It's going to probably run through the running game this year. The wide receivers didn't score a ton of points. I think Deontay Johnson had a good stretch where it was there. But there were times where those guys were not fantasy relevant at all. And all they did was get rid of one of them and add in Roman Wilson.
Yeah.
So that's what scares me about it a little bit.
Yeah, but they also had Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph throwing the football.
Yeah. But
like that
don't get me wrong,
their quarterback play was so poor that it's a clear upgrade from Russell Wilson. And yeah, people are going to say Russell Wilson, look what he did in Denver. It was awful in Denver.
Russell Wilson was on pace to be as a pretty good fantasy quarterback for a while at the beginning of that season there last year.
Yeah.
They weren't scoring a ton of touchdowns, which hurt him, and he was throwing like 2 a game, but he was throwing decent enough yardage. He was accurate. He was putting up points. Like he wasn't a fantasy quarterback, but he was a fantasy-friendly quarterback for Cortland Sutton. Right. For some of these receivers.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is that he himself wasn't a great fantasy quarterback, but he made guys fantasy relevant. And yet Jerry Jeudy was awful there.
That Jerry Jeudy is,
Sutton,
to me, a bust.
Sutton was great last year.
Yeah.
With Russ. And his mold fits more of the Pickens mold. I get that. But Roman Wilson has a chance to come in. If he ends up getting like a number 2 wide receiver role, he has a chance to really solidify. He's a great receiver, a great route runner, very similar to Lad McConkey. But Lad McConkey's in a much better situation from the offensive standpoint.
Correct.
But this team's going to have to put up points. They're going to have to keep pace with other really good offenses in this division, and it can't get much worse than it was last year. From an offensive standpoint. No,
I think the thing that worries me about him is the coverage he's going to see.
Sure.
Because
but I think that Pickens is going to get most of the coverage.
Yeah, but Pickens can get one-on-one coverage and press coverage and not be successful. We've seen that, and teams have done that against them.
Right.
So you get Roman Wilson, you get help with Roman Wilson up top. He's still a rookie in the NFL playing against some top defenses. That's what the only part that scares me because I think he's a good receiver. And I think he's got a great opportunity as a wide receiver too. I just think it's going to be a struggle, and maybe it takes half the season for you to start to see your return of investment in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be that. It's probably going to be a longer term. I don't love it from a best ball perspective. I don't think that this is. Pickens is kind of my guy that I want from a best ball perspective.
Correct,
there.
Because I want that boom.
Same with Jalen Warren. Is like those two are the guys.
Oh, I'm picking Warren day in and day out in best ball because of where he's at.
So those two guys I really like. Rowan Wilson is a guy that I think from a dynasty perspective.
I like redraft. I still like
redraft because he's going to go late, and I think people are going to shy away from him, and they're going to shy away from this offense as a whole outside of Pickens, Warren, Najee. I mean, you're seeing Najee slip more and more, but Najee's not going past the the 6th or 7th round.
Well, here's what I'll say, because I want to move on to this next guy too. This is a guy I'll talk about in a second. The one thing about Roman Wilson is in redraft with this quarterback quote unquote controversy. Like, yes, we know it's going to be Russell Wilson to start. That's what they're saying. Maybe it's not to start the season. Maybe he loses it to Justin Fields. Maybe it's like halfway through the season they switch. I'm not concerned about that with the fact that Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is going to throw to Roman, because he's still going to, I think, have formidable output either which way, no matter which quarterback is throwing to them. I think Justin Fields is a little bit more green behind the ears compared to Russell, so that timing's got to be there. But we've seen last year DJ Moore, bet one of the best seasons of his career with Justin Fields. And he was very close to having Mooney have some big games, except he was overthrowing him. So I think there's going to be opportunity there. But to me, we talk about Russell Wilson and his time in Denver. Let's talk about a receiver that has his time now in Denver. And I already made the bold prediction. You're going to hear it now, and you'll hear from me first. I may have said it on a short, but Troy Franklin is going to lead the Denver Broncos in receptions and yardage this year. Maybe not touchdowns, maybe not targets, but he's going to lead in receptions and yardage for this defense, for this offense, because he comes in, he takes over the Jerry Jeudy role, and he's more dynamic than Jerry Jeudy to me. Jerry Jeudy had the route running ability. He didn't quite have the hands. He didn't have that ability to make people miss after the catch and do things with the ball. Troy Franklin does. And let's not forget, who did they draft in the first round?
Bo Nix.
Who is his quarterback?
Yeah.
Bo Nix. So I think that in itself lends a perfect opportunity where he already has a rapport, he has a timing down, he has a comfort level with his soon-to-be starting quarterback. I don't see how Denver starts Zach Wilson over Bo Nix. I don't see they're the same person, in my opinion. One just.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing when you start fresh with Sean Payton and not gone through the ringer with the Jets. But I think really the hardest part for me is like, how good is Denver really going to be? That's the hardest part when thinking about drafting him. But I just love this opportunity that he can truly be. Like, if you look at his track record through college, from the last 3 years of college, he was very consistent with his numbers based on the opportunities given. And the only reason he looks like he got better and better and better is because he got more opportunities.
Yes.
So I think this guy is going to give you exactly what you drafted him for.
So I think it's a bold statement. And if that's what you want to die on, that's what you want to die on.
That's my bold prediction this year.
I can't really agree with that. So, yeah, if whoever's the starting quarterback, Bo Nix is probably going to win the starting job there. Although this my personal feeling on starting rookie quarterbacks that they aren't ready. Like they shouldn't start right away.
I don't disagree,
but they're going to.
There's very few that should.
But yeah, they're probably going to go with Bo Nix. Cortland Sutton's going to be the guy there.
Yeah, he's the number one guy there.
They brought in some other pieces. They re-signed Lil Jordan Humphrey, who I think is kind of Troy Franklin. Like, they're very similar style players. Troy Franklin, we said this in our wide receiver episode, has some glaring weaknesses with deep ball drops.
Yes. But again,
and if they're going to use him as a deep ball receiver.
But do they need to?
Yeah.
Why? You have Mims.
So
Mims was your deep ball guy last year.
They had Mims, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Cortland Sutton, all guys in front of him. Yet Franklin, I think, and from a best ball perspective, I actually really like Franklin because of the connection with Bo Nix. Because if Bo Nix is the starter there, then Franklin's going to get
marriage
volume.
Made in heaven right there.
It's going to be volume.
That's what I'm saying. That's my bold prediction. It's a straight up volume.
But there's a chance there's nothing. There's a chance he can dud out completely because he might not even win a number 2 role. He might not win a number 3 role there.
Well, let's not. I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong.
They didn't put a lot of draft capital into drafting him.
Well, they did. They traded up to go get him.
They did.
And don't forget, he was a guy that was talked about well before we got close to the NFL draft as being a first round wide receiver.
Well, it's what experts said as a first round receiver.
But I'm just saying.
Hold on, let me throw it for those of you guys only listening. Experts is in quotations, okay?
But what I'm saying is that there was conversation about him because of talent.
Yeah, there's talent there, but there are clear weakness. Like he has such a big problem with drops that Sean Payton is not a kind of guy that's going to be like, yeah, that's acceptable.
No, but you know who had a ton of drops?
Lad McConkey.
No, you know Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy did too, but they're two different types of receivers.
Yes, but Jerry Jeudy dropped a ton of footballs in his career in Denver.
Yeah.
Like a lot and open footballs. And then when he did catch them, he didn't do anything with them. I think this is an upgrade to me.
Franklin has a chance because he's such a dynamic player with the ball in his hands. He has a chance to be better. Like Jeudy came out as being as touted as one of the best route running prospects that we've ever seen.
Correct. And he couldn't put it together.
And he couldn't put it together. But he was never said to be this dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands. He wasn't this explosive guy at Alabama.
No.
Franklin is an explosive player.
Well,
and he has speed. He has racetrack speed.
Let me just say, he has very good speed. But they got a couple people on the team that have good speed too. But what if they decide to say, let's take a book out of Peyton? Peyton's going to say, let me take the page out of the book I've already written.
Right.
What if I want to try and mold this guy into a more dynamic Michael Thomas?
But he doesn't have the size as Michael Thomas.
But he doesn't have the size of Mims. He's bigger than that guy.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like Cortland Sutton is not going to be a Michael Thomas.
Right. I mean, I think that he has a chance to really excel because of, and the reason I love him the most is because Bo Nix will probably be the quarterback there.
Yes.
And he has the familiarity. And I think that is the reason why I like him in best ball. I'm not going to draft him high in Dynasty. I think there are too many questions. He's coming in like, all right, again, Roman Wilson comes in he's going to be the number 2. Adonai Mitchell is going to come in as the number 2.
No,
right?
I think he has more of a chance of being a number 2 than AD Mitchell does right away.
I don't.
I think he does. I think there's a clearer pathway because those other guys are like, just like we talked about Darius Slayton, these guys for the Giants, like, there was a reason why by the end of the season, Jalen Hyatt was going to be the number 2 guy there.
Well, I mean, I think Franklin kind of falls into a lot of the category of like those Giants receivers. The kind of the second,
Darius Slayton's and those guys. But they weren't. Those guys weren't drafted second rounders.
No, but Wan'Dale Robinson was.
Yes, he was, and Wan'Dale Robinson just came off a torn ACL last year.
Yeah, I know, but what did Wan'Dale Robinson?
And I actually think Wan'Dale Robinson has an opportunity to battle neighbors for the most targets on the team.
What, 20?
You put some respect to my team's name.
Yeah, okay.
Wan'Dale Robinson is a dynamic guy, but he's a gadget guy. He was a running back that turned wide receiver. Different type of player, completely.
It is a different type of player. But
it's not apples to apples.
It's not. But what I see him in kind of being that number 3 role right now. This is why
listen, we can disagree. That's the whole point of this conversation.
And how much do we like this offense in this division?
Well, that's my last point I made was how good is Denver really going to be?
Right.
And again, I didn't say he's going to lead the team in touchdowns.
Right. So
I said receptions and yardage.
If they're bad again this year, they're going to have to rebuild that offense again. What if they get another wide receiver there? Then what happens to him? Because there's still Cortland Sutton there. And then maybe he is solidified as the number 3 there.
I think if they're bad again, they're going to be focusing on the line. I think that's really where they need to focus their attention.
Probably, but Vegas's defense is scary this year. It's scary good this year.
But it was last year. They just got to put it together.
I know, but Vegas's offense or defense is scarier with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins on that line.
Yep.
You have Kansas City in that division. You have the Chargers who are going to be better than they were last year. So you're going to see Denver as being, again, a bottom feeder in that division.
But are we going to be reading into the hype again like we were last year, thinking that this division was going to be one of the highest scoring divisions of the league? And that's what we were going into the season thinking. And really, what did we have? We had one team in that division that was scoring points.
I mean, and not really a lot of them. Like Kansas City's offense was down,
and they were the best one. So the whole division. So, listen, I like him for redraft late. I'm not taking him as my wide receiver 2. I'm not taking him as my flex. I want him as my first bench player because I think by end of the season, he's going to help you big time. I think he's going to get the wide receiver 2 role. And my, again, bold prediction, I'm saying here again, he leads Denver in receptions and yardage for receivers.
There's a reason he's the 7th wide receiver we're talking about this, because he's probably like I'd probably put him down further because, again, we didn't really spend a lot of time on Malachi Corley, and I like him a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, well, you know what? Tune into Chris's short about Malachi Corley coming up in the next couple days.
We're going to have it.
How about that? We'll conclude this part 1 of our new draftees in great places, or we did last year, new faces, new places.
New faces, new places.
Tune in to our next episode where we go over the smaller list of running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks that we like in the landing spots they got to. As always, thanks for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification little bell so you get all these drops as we put them out, and tune in next time.